Just follow the money is a statement used to explain the inexplicables occurring in today's mafia-like world we thought happened only in movies. Dysfunctional bureaucracy spawned this corruption, violating the entire spectrum of human rights and our Constitution. They are constantly finding better ways to disguise the money trails by using propaganda, subcontractors, consultants, corporations, and lobbyists funded by the richest people in the world. If I wanted to rule the world, I would do three things: reduce the population, invent a pandemic, and fabricate a climate crisis. If we follow the money, mindless chants like my body, my choice, save the planet and get the jab, show abortion, vaccines, and man-made climate change all have a long money trail with less than honest agendas. To reduce the birth rate, encourage abortion by ignoring the fact that the baby is another human life being executed. My body, my choice applies before actions that could result in pregnancy. When does a mother have a right to kill her own child? Smaller populations are easy to control. Fewer people require less resources that elites want for themselves. They are trying to put the planet in a mason jar to preserve for their own personal use. Insist man-made climate change is going to destroy the planet. This warning is over 40 years old, with a wealth of information being disregarded. There is more money to be made by scaring us. Over the past 2,000 years, a warming climate showed increased prosperity. The Dark Ages were not dark, they were cold, ending when the natural global heating cycle started. Food production is always decreased during cooling periods. CO2 is a vital ingredient needed for plant growth, next to water. CO2 is a byproduct in the greenhouse gas cocktail that is used in producing energy. Only 5% of all the CO2 on the planet is man-made. Attempts to reduce man-made CO2 is very expensive, showing no connections to real-life research or scientific premise. To reduce the population further, make it more expensive to grow food and keep warm. Large amounts of money and energy are required to make use of alternative energy sources. Fossil fuel and nuclear fuels are the cheapest and the only source of energy that can provide sustainable energy for large populations. The current fossil nuclear system produces the smallest net carbon footprint compared to any Rube Goldberg alternative energy invention. Alternatives take more energy to mine the rare earth elements for systems like electric cars and generators. This produces a larger carbon footprint during the manufacture than any reduction realized during the equipment before the equipment is scrapped or replaced. Canceling pipelines and fossil fuel exploration increases the price of fossil fuel. The money trail makes alternatives more competitive with fossil fuels. Alternatives currently meet only about 12% of the nation's energy demand because they're undependable, expensive, and very inefficient. It is impossible to build enough alternative energy systems to meet the country's demand. It would require a threefold increase in the country's electric production to power cars if they were all EVs. These new plants must produce the same amount of energy being burned in the internal combustion vehicles. Where is the reduction in the carbon footprint? All EV cars are directly powered with fossil fuel or nuclear power. By taking land out of production, disguising it as necessary to preserve our beautiful country, the next money trail. Their 30 by 30 plan is a part of the Green New Deal, intended to convert 30% of all the land in the United States into national parks by 2030. The mason jar analogy reduces the ability to produce animal feed for raising meat. The objective is to reduce the number of farmers, with the remainder growing only plant-based protein for human consumption, on land purchased by elites who want to control the world. Look at the 150 million people who are Chinese who died when their agricultural jobs and homes were taken by Mao Zedong in an effort to control the population. Fewer cows and pigs is intended to reduce the output of CO2 and methane. That amount of CO2 is less than 1% of man's 5% contribution. There is no evidence that minuscule reduction would have any effect on the planet. Plant-based protein is considerably more expensive, laced with drugs and chemicals, requiring more energy, infrastructure, and contains less protein than animal protein. Where is the reduction in the carbon footprint? Just follow the money. It's easier to control a drug-dependent society with more drugs produced by large corporations and cartels. Test kits, which cures no one, keeps more people scared, raising the demand due to a lack of supply, making more things more expensive and less available. Lower cost of production gives more profit for the same product. Large corporations love this. The money trail is often buried 3 levels deep, with the systemic corporations infecting the ever larger part of the gross domestic product. Trails always lead to government spending, with draconian laws favoring large pharmaceutical companies, producing vaccines distributed for free, and makers of alternative energy equipment that has no effect on the climate. There is much more money being made by keeping the pandemic going, scaring us to death about climate change, and selling more drugs to keep us addicted. This is Keith Kuby wishing you the best in making the world a better place.